Welcome to the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio. We've got a fast-paced hour of fishing, hunting, and conservation covering the nation and the Northwest, including 13 extra minutes of local content you'll only hear on Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
It's Saturday morning, and I'm glad you're here because we're talking fishing today, and we've got a couple of great guests coming your way during the next hour. The first one is Pete Fischer at MarDon Resort. He's got a Potholes Reservoir fishing report for you at the bottom of the hour, and as always, Bob Loomis with Mack's Lure is back with some trout tactics for these hot summer days. You got to change things up. If you want to catch trout this time of year, Bob will tell you how to do that at the end of our program. But first, as we do every week, let's tell you what's hot and what's not here in the Pacific Northwest, and brought to you by your Puget Sound area Sportsman's Warehouse stores in Federal Way, Silverdale, Puyallup, and Everett. Salmon fishing is hot and not, depending on where you're at. Starting off with Rife Lake in southwest Washington, the Federal Way Sportsman's Warehouse store staff report the fishing for landlocked coho has been good as of late. This is a downrigger show for most anglers, and you'll want to look for these fish 50 to 120 feet deep. Out at Nia Bay, the salmon fishing was so good this past month, they had to make Chinook fishing a catch and release affair, but you can still bring home coho, and your chances of doing so are good not only off of Nia Bay, but all the way down the coast to Tillamook, where the coho catching has been going off quite well. The Columbia River, though, is another story. Summer Chinook crossing Bonneville Dam are running at half the 10-year average. Steelhead, only a third of the long-term average, and sockeye, a dismal 20% of the 10-year average. There is a bright side, though, and that would be the Columbia River between Rocky Reach Dam near Wenatchee and Wells Dam south of Pateros. The run here is healthy, just under the 10-year average, and with 13,000 Chinook swimming between the two dams as of Tuesday, WDFW opened up that section of the Columbia to salmon fishing. Checking in with NorthwestFisheryReports.com, a couple of posters were up at Baker Lake this past week, and though there are nearly 4,300 fish in the lake as of the 14th, it was not exactly red-hot fishing. Poster S. Craig and his crew ended up with 2 sockeye after 2 days of fishing, and Poster MPM and his son caught 5 sockeye over 3 days. Their setup? Trolling lures tipped with shrimp behind a dodger while using a downrigger. If you want to see more Baker Lake reports, and plenty of other ones too, check out the latest reports at NorthwestFisheryReports.com. Staying up north, we've also got the results from last week's Bellingham Puget Sound Angler Salmon Derby. 4 Chinook were weighed in over 20 pounds during this event, but it took a 21.9-pound king caught by Tom Hartley to win the $7,500 first place prize this year. Congratulations, Tom, and also congratulations to Drew Dunlap, who won the youth division with a nice 17.7-pound Chinook. Last but not least, and not salmon-related, bear hunting season opens up August 1st. So get that rifle sighted in and do some scouting and check the updated regulations because there's more opportunity this year. And with that, you are now in the know about what's hot and what's not right here in the Pacific Northwest.
That's your first local shot of the outdoors. Now let's see what's going on across the nation.
NorthwestFishingReports.com is the Northwest's largest fishing reports website, featuring well over 50,000 fishing reports, videos, articles, and more. All 100% free. Catch more fish with Northwest Fishing Reports. Log on today.
Are you an outfitter, sporting goods retailer, boat dealer, or someone else in the outdoors industry? If you are, you know targeted advertising works best, and what would work better than advertising with America Outdoors Radio? Our hour-long show is heard throughout Seattle, Everett, and the East Side every Saturday morning, and your message will be heard there too. Want to find out more? Contact me, John Cruz, through my website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Backcountry hunters and anglers, the men and women working hard to keep public lands in public hands. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
Ready for more local fishing and hunting? You got it. It's the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
It's time to head east of the Cascades and check in with Pete Fischer at MarDon Resort on Potholes Reservoir. Pete, it's great to have you on the air again.
Thank you.
Pete, let's start off with the results of the Limit Out Performance Marine Shootout that took place earlier this month. I understand your very own Levi Meisberg and his young son Mason came away as the champs after catching over 18 pounds of largemouth bass each day.
Yes, they did. That's very consistent, and that's what got them the win, I think. Day two is typically harder, and they did just as well on both days, and that kind of goes to show the quality and consistency of the largemouth fishing on the potholes now.
Now, I noticed there were a lot of pictures of largemouth bass, so I presume that was the main thing that was brought in. Are they still up in the dunes?
Yes, correct. 99% will go to the dunes.
And let's talk about the smallmouth bass. Are they along Goose Island and the face of the dam?
Yep, they are. They're in the rocks now. They're kind of face of the dam is still good, and the rock piles around Goose. Fish maybe 15 to 25 feet, drop shot, or crankbaits, and swim baits.
Folks, Bassmaster Magazine has named Potholes Reservoir as one of the best bass lakes in all of the western U.S. 5-pound largemouth, 5-pound smallmouth, not uncommon at all. But there's other fish we should talk about, too. One of them is walleye, but I understand that has been a little tough the last couple of weeks.
It has been. We're experiencing a little bit higher water level than normal for this time of year, so most of the fish are kind of up in the weeds, in the dunes. There's a lot of fry around, 1 to 2 inches, so they don't have to chase anything, really. They can sit there and stay in the weeds and be just full and not have to move.
On the other hand, trout fishing has been good. I know panfish has been good, too, crappie and bluegill. And one other thing that I understand that you can be catching right now are catfish. Tell our listeners about channel cats.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up. We've had several reports of fish in the 8 to 22-pound range coming in, and a fair amount of numbers as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, Pete, give me a 22-pound catfish, and I'll be a happy man any day.
Absolutely.
As you can tell, folks, the fishing is very good out at Potholes Reservoir right now, and if you need a place to stay, look no further than MarDon Resort. The website to go to is MarDonResort.com. That's MarDonResort.com. Their tagline is, where the fish bite, but we don't. Thanks as always, Pete.
Thank you, John.
The Sling Blade is Mack's Lure Company's latest dodger for you to use. Lance Mers is with us from Mack's Lure Company to tell you more about it. Why are you so excited about the Sling Blade?
Versatility, John. You can bend the Sling Blade and change it from a reactionary bite to a normal bite, and it's got so many possibilities.
Not only that, it comes in different sizes. You can use the Sling Blade for everything from trout and kokanee all the way to ocean-going salmon. It's the Sling Blade. Look for it at maxlure.com.
Backcountry hunters and anglers, the men and women working hard to keep public lands in public hands. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
Don't leave yet. We've got one more local shot of fishing and hunting to wrap up the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio.
It's summertime, the fishing's fine, but the weather's hot. So for this week's Max Minute, we've got Bob Loomis back with Mack's Lure to talk about some tactics to use during the heat of the summer for rainbow trout. Glad to have you on board, Bob.
Thank you, John.
So, Bob, I think everybody knows evening fishing, early morning fishing is good before it gets too hot. But what do you do if you're fishing during the middle of the day or just when the water temperatures are up in the lakes, no matter what time you're fishing to get at these rainbows?
Well, those fish, they will dive down. They will go down a little bit deeper. So in turn, you want to have some of your higher UV stuff and some of your products that will move a lot, that will attract them to what they're doing. Thus, you want to use, a double D Dodger, a Sling Blade, along with one of my favorites for that time of the year is using a Pee Wee Wiggle Hoochie.
Why do you like the Pee Wee Wiggle Hoochie so much for trout?
Well, just because of the amount of movement that you get out of the lure itself. It really helps. It's very erratic and really helps attract fish. The Dodger helps bring them in from a ways away, and the Wiggle Hoochie itself has that added movement that really, really gets those fish want to bite.
Salmon anglers will generally fish higher up in the water column at first light and then go deeper as the sun hits the water. Same for trout or not?
Same thing. Most rainbow trout, you will catch them in the top 20 feet of the water column. They're always going to be there. That's where they feed because of what they feed on. But when it gets hot in the middle of the day, all fish are going to end up diving, moving, getting out of that heat as much as possible, unless you've got some type of hatch or food. That's what drives them all.
All right. Well, consider a sling blade or a double D Dodger and putting behind it a Pee Wee Wiggle Hoochie. Make sure you're using those UV colors for when you're fishing deep, and you'll be reeling up fish no matter how hot it is outside. Thanks as always, Bob.
Thank you, John.
That's all for this week, but don't worry. We'll do it all again next Saturday morning from 7 to 8, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.